right. Hi, everyone. I'm hoping that this all works. Folks, my name is Christopher Balkrin. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to everything that I'm doing here on YouTube. Folks, one thing that I'm always trying to do more of is having open and honest conversations. We just don't have enough of that here in Canada. And I feel like so many other countries do a really good job of engaging in really tough conversations, and we struggle with that here. So in this live, I'm going to chat about something many of you have brought to my attention, which is everywhere you go, you seem to find temporary foreign workers, international students in jobs where before there were Canadians or before there were young Canadians doing those jobs. And now it seems like it's temporary foreign workers, international students everywhere. And this isn't about, casting blame and trying to make a specific group feel outed and othered and, felt different than. But instead, it's about an honest reflection of the government policies that have been put in place specifically for the attraction of temporary foreign workers. Because I think a lot of us as Canadians were like scratching our heads as to how fast this happened, and why. And I think that's the question that's on so many of our minds. It's like, how did we get to a place where it seems like everywhere you look, there's temporary foreign workers, there's international students, and with youth unemployment at 14.5%, 14.5%, that's youth unemployment right now here in Canada. And I'm certain that's also understated. That's an understated number. I imagine that youth unemployment is actually closer to 20%. I'll tell you honestly, just like living downtown and, sometimes I have off days, and the amount of people I see downtown who are younger than myself, who are just walking the streets. And I actually went to a coffee shop and I asked someone, I'm like, how come it's like a Tuesday and there's so many young people just walking around? And the barista said, like, this is very common. There's many unemployed and underemployed young people walking around our streets in Toronto, certainly Vancouver, Montreal, because cost of living is so high that they're trying to put a lot of like side hustles together to make ends meet. And this is the reality for so many young people in Canada right now. And I think that we need to be talking about this more, because I find that when we talk about like immigration, when we talk about temporary foreign workers, we're not talking about the real impact this is having on everyday Canadians. And so we see young Canadians unemployed, underemployed, but then we also see temporary foreign workers and international students. They never seem to be out of work. They're always hustling, doing multiple jobs. How come that's happening? And many of you have said that like your son, your daughter have been applying to jobs and they're not even getting callbacks. They're not even getting a resume. Like, no one's calling them back to go work at a Tim Hortons, etc. So what's going on? How come the policies the government's been doing seems to have changed the demographic makeup of our country quite dramatically? Now, I will say that the impetus by the federal government has been something called the Global Skills Strategy. The Global Skills Strategy is something where Canada is competing with other countries around the world, like the UK, Australia, etc., and they are competing for the best labor, or just labor in general. And in order for them to do that, they have to make it as attractive as possible. Now, this is the question that I always have. It's like, I understand the global skills strategy, which actually originated under the Harper government. But when we're trying to attract immigrants to Canada, I automatically assume that we are following the same things that Canada had been known for many years, which is we're attracting economic immigrants, immigrants who have qualifications, who want to continue professional designations here in Canada, and we're making sure that that's possible. And, economic immigrants are, in fact, like, they do represent a sizable number of our entire immigration numbers in Canada. But that number is hovering around 300 to 400,000. Temporary foreign workers are in the high 100,000s to most recently in 2022, over 1 million. And so that gives me pause for concern, because I'm like, what is happening? Why are we attracting all types of immigrants with qualifications or lower qualifications entering lower skilled level positions instead of hiring Canadians? I just don't understand that, especially with our unemployment and youth unemployment. Why are we bringing in temporary foreign workers and international students to fill those labor shortages? It's very odd. It's something I wanted to raise with all of you, and I'm curious to know what you think, because this was something that was really interesting when I was looking into it. But the government of British Columbia in 2022, it invested $12 million in getting foreign-trained nurses, to attract nurses to BC. And they did so by, offering incentives, bursaries, etc., and even saying that, you can finish your nursing exams here in BC just to get more nurses in. And when I read the news article on the government of BC's website, it was to fill critical labor shortages in the ER. And that surprised me. That truly surprised me, because I'm thinking to myself, how come that's the case where we have critical labor shortages in the ER, in BC Health, and instead of hiring Canadians, BC is going abroad? And a lot of people have asked me, they said, Christopher, well, the reality is that Canadians aren't applying. But I looked on UBC's website, and their nursing program is one of the most prestigious across the country, and they only have 120 seats. There's 600 applicants on an annual basis, meaning they're backlogged year after year after year. And so if they're backlogged year after year after year for Canadian students who are applying to nursing programs in BC, why would the government go abroad to attract international nurses? To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. There clearly are Canadians who want to be nurses, who want to study in that profession, and UBC and other colleges in BC can't seem to find enough seats for the amount of Canadians who want these to continue their studies. And so the government's going abroad. It just doesn't make sense to me why the government would do that. As well, the BC government's done a few other things that, again, make you really pause. Again, they have a lot of legislation and acts and policies that protect international students and temporary foreign workers. They introduced the International Education Framework, setting higher requirements for institutions to enroll international students, to make sure that there's transparency, there's clear marketing, accountability, and better student supports as well, which is great. But this also means that there's more and more need for a deeper dive on what's happening in the education space that force them to do that. So is there fraud happening? Are there policies that are being enacted that aren't being thought through? What exactly is going inside the education space in BC for them to launch these types of new requirements and new frameworks? I think that's really interesting. I also think what's interesting is that the BC government is not fully clear on, again, why they're attracting so many foreigners to Canada. I think that's, again, something that we have to really think about like why is the BC government doing that. To me, it just seems like something else is going on. So I'd love to know what you think about this. Here's something else to think about. The BC government has also increased settlement services by quite a bit. They've increased settlement services to $25 million. And I find this interesting because I think the issue here is a lot of services are being offered to TFWs and they're not being offered to Canadians. And I think that's one of the big issues that I find when we talk about supports for international students and temporary foreign workers, that provinces are really bending over backwards to provide as many services to international students, to temporary foreign workers, but they're not doing so for average everyday Canadians. So I mentioned BC and what they're doing for nursing, and I think this is very important because I think it's also very important that we talk about this. But like another example is the provincial nomination program. So the provincial nominee program, it's used to recruit and retain international talent, and BC has approximately 8,200 recruits on an annual basis, but that's the highest it's ever been. Those are also targeted for permanent residency as well. So very interesting there. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You know, provinces also target specific sectors for the provincial nominee program, including hospitality and tourism and IT. And so it gets really, really murky when you get into the data to see like how many Canadians would otherwise be applying to jobs in hospitality and tourism or IT and tech, and that there still is a gap, and that gap needs to be filled by temporary foreign workers and international students. That's what I don't understand. What I instead see on many like provincial websites and federal websites, it's that like there's all these programs specifically for international students and temporary foreign workers, but there's not enough data that the provinces show that say that we're actually in need of temporary foreign workers and international students because of these explicit gaps in our in these sectors. Instead, it's set at a much more high level. It's not discussed more broadly and in more detail. So if in fact the province were to put out data about how they have, say, an IT tech firm setting up shop, they don't have enough local workers to support that workforce, so they have to go abroad. There's just not enough data to show that linkage to then make that assumption that there's not enough Canadians, if that makes sense. So that's what gets me very, very concerned about these types of programs. Again, I mentioned at the outset, BC spent $12 million to launch an international recruitment campaign for nurses, providing incentives, etc. Not realizing that there's pent-up demand for Canadians to enter into nursing school as it stands right now. In fact, in BC, there's a massive waiting list. For entering into a nursing program in BC. Sorry, something's going on here. Hang on, give me a second. So, BC does a lot for attracting temporary foreign workers and international students. And, BC's not alone on this. The government of Alberta also has the Rural Renewal Stream. I didn't even know this existed. The Rural Renewal Stream. Try saying that 10 times fast. It's a stream that allows small towns to hire and recruit temporary foreign workers directly. And so temporary foreign workers can be recruited by small towns across Alberta. Now, again, one might say, well, if there's a labor shortage and no Canadians applying, then that makes sense, but that's really hard to prove. I mean, if you just think about it, right? Like if you post a job and you're not getting any applicants, like maybe it's your posting method. Maybe you're on like a website that nobody visits. Maybe you're posting in community gatherings where nobody's visiting. I mean, I don't know how they measure that no Canadians applying. I don't get that. That to me seems to be like the chink in the armor when it comes to this, because how could a company prove that no Canadian is applying? I can't imagine, especially in small towns across Alberta, that where jobs are very scarce, that people wouldn't be applying, especially if they live in another small town. You know, like I'm sure that people in small towns would travel small town to small town for work if there was work, and even if it was on a temporary basis. Like they would definitely do that even for like a month or 2 months or 6 months or whatever. I can't imagine Canadians wouldn't be applying. So the fact that Alberta allows the Rural Renewal Stream, RRS, which allows temporary foreign workers to be hired directly by small towns, is very intriguing to me. BC also has a temporary foreign worker office, which provides legal services and job services, job help support for temporary foreign workers. Again, I think this is really, really interesting. Sorry, I'm seeing an error here. I think everything's okay. Yeah, this is very interesting that there are so many temporary foreign workers that are getting support from the government. And again, I think this is where a lot of Canadians are getting really angry and upset, because they're finding that they can't find work, their kids can't find work, and it's causing a big problem. It's causing a major problem across Canadian cities and in smaller towns and communities. And the fact that like we can't again talk about this openly is very challenging for us as Canadians. I'm going to pause here. I see there's some comments. Let me just take a look at what people are saying. J. Michael Bolton, my not-for-profit is dedicated to helping youth in Canada get jobs. We supplement income. It works. Jay, thank you so much for your comment. And it's so great. You know, definitely there are not-for-profits that are helping youth get jobs. But we can't ignore the fact that the youth unemployment is the highest it's ever been since 2010, and I believe just a hair above what it was in 1998. I mean, we have not seen these numbers of youth unemployment in Canada in a very long time. And this is with the national unemployment rate hovering around 7%, I believe, which isn't as high as one might think, but all this really is, even if I were to tell you youth unemployment is high at 14.5%, the actual number is probably much higher than that, because youth unemployment's probably just like a lot of scarcity and underemployment. Like I imagine there's a lot of youth who are very underemployed in our big cities across the country. I see a lot of messages. Bear with me, folks. I'm just trying, and I've got like 2 minutes, 2% battery on this. I should have really charged my battery before. But let me just see what's going on here. Sorry, folks. I see some things are being filtered, so I want to make sure I'm capturing them all. People love to blame liberals, but the conservative provinces push LIMA numbers through the roof. This is a very important point, because, you know, exactly the common thing, the common issue is people do think that this is like a big liberal conservative thing, but it's not necessarily. In fact, like you said, Jay, some conservative governments are pushing the labor market impact assessments to be actually, interestingly, there's a push for more TFWs and maybe even skirting the rules. AB says 22% male youth unemployment. Very interesting. I want to make sure that that's accurate as well, so I'm sure it is, but just want to make sure that when we are saying things, we are all good here. Sorry, folks, I see my mic might be giving some issues. If it is, let me know in the comments below, but hopefully everyone can see and hear me. Both parties are compromised from AB. AB, thanks for your comments. Yeah, it's very odd. Again, like I said, some very strange policies in BC and Alberta, but interestingly enough, both really pale in comparison to Ontario. Ontario is like in a kind of league of its own. Again, we do have the provincial nominee program, and Ontario, like I think over 20,000 people are entering Ontario through the provincial nominee program, and that's like double the number it was just I think a couple years ago. So very, very wild. The stream for international graduates. This is another thing Ontario's done, which again I think people need to know about. We run dedicated streams for master's and PhD graduates, which allows those who earn advanced degrees in Ontario to apply for PR without a job offer. And I think this is actually something we should really be talking about, because imagine, you're a master's graduate, and you don't have a job offer, you can still get PR. It is pretty wild when you think about it. And also, it enables Ontario employers as well to hire international college and university graduates for permanent roles and then sponsor them for nomination. And so it's interesting that there are all these streams that attract foreign educated individuals to come to Canada. Now, listen, I don't think Canadians are against people coming to Canada, starting their lives, and building their life here in Canada. I don't think any Canadian is against that. But there have been just rapid changes in the past few years that have made many just question what exactly is happening here. And as I've mentioned before, youth unemployment is really high. There's many of you who have messaged me personally, who have DM'd me and told me, hey, Christopher, my son or daughter have applied to so many jobs and they're not getting even a call back, even if to a Tim Hortons, to retail, to food service, to condo security. They're trying to get some type of job to help with their university, and they can't even get that. So something is definitely going on, and we should be talking about this as Canadians. And I think the other piece is, as the governments embrace temporary foreign workers, as they embrace all types of things, the change of our demographics is real. It's happening. I've made separate videos about the clustering effect and all of that. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe, but definitely subscribe to my YouTube as well. Full name, Christopher Balkrin. I've done a lot of deep dives on this, so check out my videos there. And again, I'm here to have open and honest conversations. We're just not having enough of this in Canada on a regular basis. And I think it's because we're all very terrified of being called a racist or something. Folks, my battery's about to die, so I'm just going to plug in my phone. Bear with me. Because I think this is really important, and I don't want to lose you all. I think I'm at 1%. I really should have thought about this before I started this live. But continue speaking. Someone in the chat too has talked about IMP, the International Mobility Program. Folks, if you don't know about the International Mobility Program, that is wild. Okay, I probably have 1%, but I'm going to keep going because I've got my cord right here. But IMP dwarfs the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. IMP, the International Mobility Program, I think there's 500 to 600,000 IMP holders right now. And there's only 200,000 temporary foreign workers. IMP dwarfs the TFW program. Interestingly enough, IMP was started by Harper, And when Polyev was talking about scrapping TFW, the TFW program, he did not mention IMP. I'll leave that with you as I charge up my phone. Give me 1 second. And the thing too with this is like, we just need to be talking about this more. I feel like we as Canadians, we struggle talking about things because we're just worried that, how we might be perceived or, how we might be thought of. But again, I think the reality is so many of us have so many questions and we're just not getting those answers. And we're terrified of being labeled as racists. And so we get into these positions where we're like, oh great, I don't have a plug for this. We get into these positions. Oh, I do. We get into these positions where we're like, what the heck's going on? Oh no, I don't. Damn it. My battery's about to die, so we'll just keep going until my battery dies. How about that? Yes. How about that? I really should have planned this out more before I started this live, but I didn't. And now I'm in a bit of a pickle, but we'll figure this out. Let me just read some of the chat responses. AB says, I'm done being told it's racist to call this out. That's right. I mean, we should all be done with that. It's not racist to call this out. It's very important that we talk about this. Let's see. Sorry, folks. I'm having... Thanks, Hyper Punk Prince says that I should be on the agenda with Steve Bacon. I know. I think it's off the air now. I think they have something else now. Majesty Gray says, I appreciate this. Thanks, Majesty. I think the negative effects of globalization are in play currently. Here's a question for everyone, and I'm so curious to know what you think about this. Capitalism, like this pursuit for endless talent from across the world. Tell me about what you think of capitalism, because people have been saying that, oh, this is runaway capitalism, etc. But really, I feel like it's Canada just competing with other countries for talent as brutally as it can. And here's the other thing, just something to think about. Why would provinces be like so fixated on attracting the best and like more than anyone else? It's almost like they're in competition. I wonder if the provinces get like more funding from the feds if they attract more temporary foreign workers, because like I think that there is a incentive, obviously, from the feds, and I'm just making this up, but there would be an incentive from the feds to attract foreign direct investment to Canada for employment. Okay, I get that. But in order for foreign direct investment to happen, they'd have to make sure that there's employment. And would provinces skip over, hey man, going to a job board, posting your jobs, and say instead, don't worry, set up shop here in Canada. We will guarantee you temporary foreign workers immediately. So as soon as your shop is set up, as soon as the doors are opened, you're going to have a steady stream of temporary foreign workers, and then maybe we'll post some for Canadians. And then that way, the feds win, the province wins, everybody wins. But I think the person and the people that are losing out are Canadians, because so many Canadians, so many of you tell me you can't find jobs. That as soon as you apply, there's a bunch of temporary foreign workers, international students there already. What is going on? Like, what truly is happening here? So let me know. I see a lot more comments here. AB on YouTube, if you're hearing me. I'm also on TikTok right now live, so that's why my battery is here, and it's almost dead, but we're going to go until my battery dies. So I think there's some things people are saying. Yeah, I didn't even mention the $100,000 fee on H-1B visas to protect locals that's happening in the United States. That should be in my next video, actually. Exactly. J. Michael Bolton says, Why is youth crime skyrocketing? No work, no third spaces, no support. Jay, here's a question for everyone. And this is I'm not trying to be difficult here or anything. But do you think that this issue of employment and temporary foreign workers is something that cross-cuts liberals and conservatives? Because Jay, to your point, if we're seeing higher youth unemployment, there very well may be and is a connection between high youth unemployment and crime. And isn't that something that the left and the right would be like, we have to make sure that this is not happening? Like, this should be the one thing that we 100% focus our energy on, because we can't destabilize communities and we have to make sure that our youth are employed to help our local economies. So do you think that, making sure there's opportunities for Canadian youth, for Canadians, period, is the North Star that like both the left and the right can agree on? The left may say more programs, the right may say more foreign direct investment with a caveat of Canadian employment. What are your thoughts on that? Because I do think that sometimes in politics and policy, you find these issues that cross-cut left and right, and no one kind of reaches across the aisle to talk about like, hey, we can actually agree on this, and that's fine. Let me know what you think. Someone told me to get out of their country. So let's see, economic globalization. Oh, okay, sorry, that's the AI. Says, no, they show up when they want. They book their sick days a week ahead. Ariel. That's actually a very important point as well, Ariel. Wouldn't hire Gen Z. It's interesting because yeah, okay. So here's interesting. So for those not on my YouTube, if you haven't on TikTok, subscribe to my YouTube. Full name Christopher Balkerin. I post deep dive videos on topics exactly like this. So head over there, subscribe to me, because that's where I have a lot more free-form conversations. I'm also live there right now. So if my video dies here, go to YouTube and check out my live happening right now. On YouTube, AB says, we're told to leave our car keys out and our doors unlocked. We need the castle doctrine. And again, I'd love to know your thoughts on that as well. So let me know. The other thing, so I wanted to ask you all this as well. Gen Z and Canadian youth. So Ariel made a good point about like a lot of young people being lazy. And I don't want that stereotype to be there because, we all experience. Listen, I'm a millennial kid. I remember entering the workforce and everyone saying, "Oh, these millennials, they're all day on their phones. They don't care about anything and anyone. They're not hard workers." So I want to ask this very challenging question to all of you. Okay, so say you're a franchise owner of a Tim Hortons, and say you work in a downtown area and it's super busy at say 6 a.m. You got the 7 a.m. rush. And you could hire a bunch of like Gen Z Canadian kids, but maybe your experience has been that they don't work hard, they don't show up, some of them quit, they or you have this option of these temporary foreign workers from India, international students from India, and you've got a steady stream. You don't really have to interview them. They'll be there at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. They'll be there after closing. That they'll always be there on time. It's a sad stereotype. But I just want to play devil's advocate because employers in the comments have also said, like, I tried hiring a bunch of Gen Zs. It didn't work out. I had this opportunity for TFWs. I took a chance and it was the best decision for my business. And I don't want that stereotype, but I want us just to like talk about that perspective as well, because I can imagine there are employers who are faced with this very challenge, and the number one cost for every employer is staffing, and they're going to make sure that there is like as they're trying to limit as many as many costs for labor as possible. So I'm just throwing it out there. I know it's a controversial opinion, but some employers have raised that with me in the comments, and I just want to get your reaction to that. AB says, Gen Z are not lazy. They just can't be treated like indentured servants. Fair point, and something we should be talking about more, because I don't know like what the working hours are like. I know for like Uber drivers, they're working like nonstop, it seems, which is a separate topic we should be talking about. Murray's San on YouTube says there's more costs involved with youth workers, which is offset by lower wages for international workers who will make the same or different mistakes. Interesting comment, Murray's San. There's more costs involved with youth workers, which is offset by lower wages for international workers who will make the same or different mistakes. Fair point. Anytime you hire anyone, it's always a risk. You don't know what's going to happen, but there's always a chance for people to actually be really good or really terrible. It doesn't matter if they're a temporary foreign worker or a Canadian. On TikTok, it's Jay says, young people aren't lazy, they're disenfranchised. Why try when the game is rigged? Very good point. Omri says, for Tim Hortons, the cheaper the better. You don't see international students in Starbucks. This is also true. There are certain companies that just don't hire temporary foreign workers, or if they do, we don't see them. And I just wonder sometimes, like, the impetus for those companies to do exactly that, because you'd imagine that they're probably getting a lot of incentives to hire temporary foreign workers, and they're choosing not to. AB says, we are being gaslit. You can't just paint an entire generation as lazy. That's such a sweeping generalization. 100% AB. 100%. I think that there's a lot of negativity towards Gen Z. But at the same time, I can understand from an employer's perspective, if they're being offered lower labor expenditure, 9 times out of 10, they're going to take it. And the question is, similar to First Nations communities, when a mining company comes to their community or a natural gas pipeline passes through, many communities negotiate impact benefit agreements where, yes to development only if it employs a certain percentage of its workforce from that First Nation community. Makes sense. Like, it's just an economic impact benefit agreement. Like, sure, like, set up shop, but you have to train our people, you have to apply jobs for our people, and you have to send them to school. And some even say, like, okay, like, part of the percentage of you investing here means that you're going to also invest in enrollment in schools for our people, and protecting spaces for our people, cleaning the waters and and riverways. Could something like that happen in Canada? Murray-san says, I think the Western mindset on culture needs to dominate the workforce, as in America. There's a huge culture behind their businesses that don't care if there's a foreign employee dilemma. Whereas in Canada, language barriers can be overcome easily. Very interesting, Murray-san. That's an interesting point, and I'd love to know what people think about this, because that is actually quite interesting. The Western mindset needs to dominate the workforce. So in the United States, there's a huge culture behind their businesses that don't care about this foreign employee dilemma. But in Canada, it is a concern because a lot of Canadians are being displaced. Now, I will say the numbers, Murray-san, probably just account for that. The United States with 10 times the number of Canadians, and the fact that its country was built on a revolution, has instilled a stronger sense of national pride and identity that Canadians truly do lack, I think. And I think only recently have we established more national pride or nationalism. Thank you for the comments on TikTok, everybody. That's great. One thing we should also just really talk about before my battery dies, is about to die. Again, I just want to know from you, like, the incentives behind this entire plan, right? Like, why is there this strong push for temporary foreign workers in more and more fields? Like 1970s, it was construction. The 1980s and 90s, it expanded to personal care and hospitality and tourism. And today, temporary foreign workers occupy almost every sector in every job. And Jay says it's profits, 100%. But I'm struggling because I understand that there would be a national push to employ Canadians. I would assume that. Like, I would assume that the Prime Minister and the premiers would be so fixated on making sure Canadians have jobs. Whenever I see the premiers out announcing these big plans, it's always like, this is going to apply, this is going to, have 150 quality Canadian jobs. It's like, yeah, are Canadians working those jobs? Like, that's what I don't get. I don't get why we don't have our politicians standing up and fighting for Canadians to be employed. And maybe that's where I'm going to leave all of you tonight with, for us to think about and keep talking about as I think about doing another live about this exact issue. But like, where do we go from here where we feel like our politicians are fighting for Canadian jobs, like Canadians to be employed? Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, if you have not already subscribed to me here on TikTok, Christopher Balkrin. Subscribe to me on YouTube, Christopher Balkrin. Folks, I don't know about you. I feel like I'm the only Canadian, or one of the only Canadians, that's delving into this topic head first with an open and honest mindset and open and honest curiosity. So help me build this movement. I need your support. Hit that like button, subscribe, send me your email, tell me everything. I reply to everything, all the comments as well. I try to make this very personal as I grow, as I develop my audience. And if you haven't, check me out on Instagram, OpenMindsPod, OPENMINDS pod, or just search my name, Christopher Balkrin. I'll come up. Again, building out my audience, building this out. This is like the place where we should be having more and more conversations. Can Anthony says, thank you, Mr. Balkrin. Underrated. You should have more viewers. Definitely I should. Thanks, Can. Everyone, tell your friends, tell your family. This is the place where we should have these conversations. It's so important that we do. If we don't, we allow the politicians to make decisions on the future of our nation, and they should never do that. Thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Hit that like button. Definitely subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.